The obfuscation of artificial intelligence, or AI obfuscation. It is Gary Mitchell, another Gary on manufacturing. And this podcast is brought to you, as always, by Inductive Automation. All right, automation enthusiasts, mark your calendar for the premier industry event of the year that's happening on September 16 through 18 in Sacramento, California. That's when the Ignition Community Conference will power up your industrial knowledge and your professional network, attracting more than 1,000 industry professionals, 50 expert speakers, and 40 exhibitor booths demonstrating cutting-edge tech. ICC is the place to explore automation innovation through a full schedule of engaging sessions, enlightening content, and interactive activities, all while connecting with the brightest minds. And new this year are the Prove It showcases, where you'll see actual Industry 4.0 challenges solved live in real time, and the Co-Lab rooms for mingling with session speakers and testing your ignition skills. Level up your conference experience and purchase your ticket at icc.inductiveautomation.com. And that was all pretty much a read written by Inductive Automation, but I second all that. I've been to many of these community conferences, and they specifically call it community because they have really tried over their 20 plus years together to build a community. And I go and I love, I like the sessions. I learn a lot about new technologies and what's new in ignition. And I also like, especially lunchtime at dinners, you want to kick back and relax. At lunchtime, you can sit around and I can learn a lot from the actual people who use ignition and other things, and find out how it's used and why it's used and what the benefits are. And that's really good. The marketing and product people are good. They can tell you what's going on, but it's really good to get the hands-on feel. And later on in this podcast, I'm going to talk about a conversation I just had this morning as I record this with Mike Payne of Hill Manufacturing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he's the owner president of a production machine shop in down in Tulsa. And we talked about a number of things that highlight on another podcast and another blog post. But in this case, he mentioned about using AI, and I said, "Oh, I'm interested. Tell me more. How are you using AI?" So anyway, let's just dive right in. There is so much hype and what I was just calling obfuscation, which means using words to maybe make things less clear than they could be, and about artificial intelligence, AI, and large language models, LLM, and now we have AGI, artificial general intelligence and super intelligence that's coming out of Meta, maybe. And this is all going crazy, and we have to remember a few things. One, if you're reading in mainstream media, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, or even other major things, maybe Fortune or Forbes, or I don't know what you might read. And it sometimes boils down even to the trade press, who basically just use the press releases that come to them, and you're getting a lot of hype. It's just like overly done. I know on LinkedIn, a lot of times there's a commentator by the name of Rick Bulata who tries to puncture some of the hype fantasies coming out. Remember a couple of things. When you hear people like Sam Altman of OpenAI, or even Mark Zuckerberg of Meta slash Facebook and so on, uh, or some of the other CEOs of these artificial intelligence large language model LLM companies, if they're a CEO, their job is to sell their vision, sell what they're doing, and in order to do a couple things. One, they need to build some momentum and some hype, if you want, or buzz around their brand and their company, because they need investment. In fact, these companies need huge investments to build these data centers full of a million NVIDIA chips to process and then buy the electricity to run those things and all that. They need money, and that's their job. And I'm not being cynical. A long time ago, I worked for a smallish company that built automated assembly machinery. And I was in charge of things like sales and marketing and application engineering. We developed the quotes and concepts of the new machine, and project management reported to me. And we had a president back in those days before everybody was a CEO. They were presidents. And so I go to the president and say, Dave, your job is to finance us. You need to make sure we have enough working capital to build the machines that you have, we got an order and you accepted the order. And so now we've got to build it and we have to invest because in that business, you have to invest a lot of money to build the machine, to design it and get it all run out and perfect to the specs of GM or whoever you're building for. And so it takes working capital. So I said, you might think that the owners of the company are you and the six other shareholders who have put in a little bit of money, but the bank has put in a big amount of money. The bank is our main customer, our main owner, if you will. And so your job is finance. So make sure you do a good job of it. And he didn't, and we went out of business. But anyway, that's what they're doing, and that's their job. And if they're good at it, they're going to keep the company going and build that buzz and that vision and get people to feel confident and invest in them. Okay, that's fine, but what does that do for us down here on the other end? Not a lot. Okay, so it's what are we really using? Are we getting like bamboozled by all these buzzwords? And then we have somebody coming out like another CEO came out and said, this is going to, AI is going to do away with all the entry level jobs. And because it'll be able to do so many things. You really think so? Somebody's got to tell the AI what to do, and there's a lot of stuff involved. So I think it will change entry-level jobs tremendously because entry-level jobs will now have another tool to use, and that tool is going to have some sort of large language model, some sort of copilot, some sort of AI, LLM, machine learning component to the whole thing, and it will change the way, so they'll have to learn to use these new tools. That will change the job, but you'll still need some entry level, lower level people. And then I read another article recently which just really cracked me up because it said AI is going to do away with middle management. Now you have to have some background. I'm not a young guy anymore, and I've been around a while. So let's go back to that tool company I worked for. One of the departments I was in charge of were the project managers, and I think I had three, four, maybe four project managers. We had a lot of iron on the floor. We were selling a lot of machines at the time. And one of my project managers came to me in 1985 and says, hey, I've been reading about the demise of middle management. They're flattening organizations, doing away with middle management. Am I a middle manager? And I said, no, you're a project manager. Your job is to get a project complete on time within budget and make the customer happy and our accountants happy with the profits. So no, you're not middle. I said, I'm kind of middle. I'm between you and the president. And if the president decided that he wanted to run everything, he could just get rid of me and you could report to him. I'm in the middle. But I'm thinking, okay, so 40 years ago, we're talking about getting rid of middle management, and then this CEO comes out and says, "Oh, we're gonna get rid of middle management." It's like sort of yes, sort of no. There sort of needs to be in a lot of organizations, you sort of need some middle people in between, especially in a bigger company. But in the old days, those guys were, and they were all guys in the old days, paper shufflers. They got reports from here and they compiled them and then sent them off another written report somewhere else. And pretty soon we can compile a lot of that stuff in computers. That changed a lot of that job. And and through different organizational tactics, we can have a longer span of control, they used to call it in my management days. And so that eliminates maybe a layer of management and that sort of thing. And we're still going to because everybody that works in a company needs to add value. And if all you do is like take instructions from the level above you and give instructions to the level below you, and then just double check that they're doing their work and then report back to, okay, we really don't need that level. Okay. There are tools and LLMs are going to provide more tools for people to do that kind of work. So no, is it going to do away with it? It's an organizational challenge. It's a people problem. It's not a technology problem. Technology, as I just heard at a recent conference, doesn't necessarily do away with jobs, it does away with tasks. And then how you do the tasks and assign them out can affect jobs. And so that's part of my thing about this AI obfuscation stuff. There's a lot of stuff. You just need to know LLMs are just basically a probability engine. And I read another article recently by Seth Godin who was talking about culture. And what they're really good at is looking at words. And the way we use words is sort of is sort of our culture. And it can look at words and on a probability spectrum say, if you use this word, this is probably the next word that's going to come. And this is probably the next one. And if you start to look at it, then it can look back and say, okay, here's what the chain is going to look at words, and that's what it does. Is it intelligent? Only to the sense of probabilities that it can give you what's probably the next word, and it can do it so quickly that it can put together whole paragraphs. And I use Claude. I use Claude.ai, and a lot of people are hooked on Chat GPT. I looked at it, and it's okay. But Claude and I have quite a relationship now, and I have to remember that Claude, not to, I shouldn't anthropomorphize Claude. Claude's not a person, but Claude thinks it knows me, and I think I know Claude. And I have several projects going on, and I'll ask ongoing questions as I'm trying to define things within the different projects I'm working on. And it comes back, and I basically use it as a much better, much smarter Google search. Google search for me over the last 5 to 10 years has really, shall we say, sucked. And I was just using it today to try to find an answer to an audio problem I had with my microphone and mixer and into the computer and other kinds of stuff like that with my audio setup. And and I had to search a number of different ways in Google. I probably should have just gone to Claude for that too, because first the first things are always sponsored, and I just go right past them. I don't click on anything sponsored, and even if it might be good, but it probably isn't. And then I've got 5 things left per page, and then it was just not good. So so LLMs, they've got a use. So back to what I was talking about, Mike Payne at Hill Manufacturing. And the reason I talked to him was because I went to the Hexagon conference last month, and they tried to set me up with him, but he was so busy and they had to catch a flight back, and it didn't work out. And Mike is an interesting character. He um developed with some other people a software company, and I got all excited. And he said, "Oh, you probably never heard of it. It did manufacturing data software." Sold it out, and took the money, became an investment person, if you will, an investor, and that led to he said, just being a plain investor isn't fun. I like manufacturing, so he bought a manufacturing company that was for sale at the time called Hill Manufacturing. Been in business for about for over 40 years. Basically the same customers, just chunking out. It's a production machining, company and machine shop, and cranks out all kinds of parts out of mills and other kinds of stuff. Not my area of expertise, all the metal cutting stuff. But anyway, it's kind of fascinating. I'll have another whole thing just on the whole process of what he does there. But he mentioned AI, and I said, "Oh, AI. I'm interested in AI. What are you doing there?" And so because he said about AI in the office. Now, little background. So he bought the company, and he says this is all about productivity. You can't hire enough bodies to be more productive and get more parts out, especially when it's a machine shop where you're buying 500,000 $1 million machines. You got a heck of a capital investment. So he uses AI a couple of different ways. One, he's got a software that will run his tool paths and that sort of thing. It actually kind of run or program, if you will, the CNC uh, part of the machine. So he can dump a 3D model from CAD into it, and it goes into the CAD tool, and and it helps the productivity in that sense. And he said what basically happens in programming, it knows G codes, so it can look at a lot of stuff. Oh, wait a minute, let me back it up. So this is back to the programming. There's 2 things. So he can back it up and kind of describe what they're trying to do, and he says, we started to say 80%. He says, well, actually, it can program 100%, but it's only 80% good. So what that does, that means my programmers are now 80% more efficient and more productive because 80% of the job of the programming job is done for them just based on models and past experience, that probability stuff I was talking about, that all works under the covers. Then as engineers look at it and say, okay, or as programmers, and here's what we need to tweak it and make it production software. So now he doesn't have to go out and try to find another programmer as his company grows. His programmers that he's got are now productive and they get to do more of the exciting work instead of the drudge work. And the other thing he can do is the software he has, the AI, the LLM, can look at G code, and he goes from G code to the artificial intelligence engine that he uses, and it'll turn the G code into English, and then the English turns into work instructions, and it'll say, and once again, I'm a lightweight when it comes to machine centers. So, but it'll talk about the workpiece and the fixtures and the holding and the paths and do this and then do this. So it's a workflow, work instruction kind of thing. It goes through a process of through the system into English into his ERP system, which goes into workflow. So a couple of really cool things that he uses AI for that just makes his operation more productive. And that's the name of the game. That's when I first started out in the 70s as working in manufacturing, and we were trying to be more efficient, more productive. Um, in a sense, it's get more out of the people, but that can have a negative connotation, but it's to make the people more productive and usually takes some of the drudge work away from the people. So you didn't just hire a set of hands, you hired a set of hands with a brain. And so they could start to use that. Uh, AI is a tool and use it as a tool and don't be afraid of it. Don't read science fiction hype. Science fiction is fun. I like to read science fiction. But anyway, don't go all in the hype stuff that's going on and all that. Downplay all that, but do take a look at it. Claude, ChatGPT, they can make you personally more efficient and productive by helping you in your research and giving you some paragraphs of ideas back. It can help your employees an awful lot by the same thing, maybe programming and sort of things like that, or workflow. Great uses, great tools. It's a great tool for improving your operations. So, artificial intelligence obfuscation, go beyond the obfuscation. Just ignore all the buzzwords and the hype words and all the overblown stuff and the fear mongering and all that sort of stuff. Search it out, use it as a tool. The tool is going to help you and your employees do a better job and get more production out. So thanks for listening. This is Gary Minchell. This podcast is brought to you, as a reminder, by Inductive Automation. All right, automation enthusiasts, mark your calendar for the premier industry event of the year on September 16th through 18th in Sacramento, California. That's when the Ignition Community Conference will power up your industrial knowledge and your professional network, attracting more than 1,000 industry professionals, 50 expert speakers, and 40 exhibitor booths demonstrating cutting edge tech. ICC is the place to explore automation innovation through a full schedule of engaging sessions, enlightening content, and interactive activities. All the while, you can connect with bright minds, maybe like mine. Maybe you'll find me there and we can have a chat over coffee or something. I'd love that. I'd love to connect with real people that are doing real work on the factory floor. Anyway, new this year to ICC are Prove It showcases, where you'll see actual Industry 4.0 challenges solved in real time, and the collab rooms for mingling with session speakers and testing your ignition skills. Level up your conference experience and purchase your ticket, and maybe meet me at ICCinductiveautomation.com. Thank you. Have a good day and be kind. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others.